Commander is Magic the Gathering's most popular format, and for good reason. So today, we're bringing the heat with a brand new modern deck inspired by the EDH format, built around our commander, Joda the Unifier, a WUBRG legend which cascades for other legendary cards every time you cast another legend. We're going to go ham with this cascade ability along with some of the most powerful legends Modern has to offer, including Atraxa Grand Unifier, Kroxa and Kunaros, Kenrith the Return King, Elish Norn, Inga and Asika, Thalia and the Gitrog Monster, Soul of Winggrace, Omnath, Gwenna, Acererak, and so much more. This is the most fun I've had playing a deck, well, since I last played Commander. You're about to see why. Let's get to it. And we have a fun one today. Commander is making its debut in the Modern format. Let's reveal our Gigantha. We're going to be on the draw. And while we have 2 copies of our Commander in our opening 7, I don't think we can keep this. 6 is a little bit better. We'll keep, and I think we'll put Atraxa on the bottom. Opponent leads with a Wooded Foothills. They fetch Blood Crypt, Shock, into a Ragavan. Don't actually have an answer to that right now. All right, we drew into a Breeding Pool. I think we start there. We'll Shock that in, and we'll Utopia Sprawl on it, and we'll name white. Opponent's going to crack in with the Ragavan. Take a hit for 2. The monkey steals our Zagoth Triome. Didn't want it anyway. Opponent with an Urza Saga. This looks like Jund Saga. They have a Gigantha as well, which I did not notice until now. Beseiju on my Breeding Pool. That's rude. We will search. We're going to get our Rogrin Triome. Back our way. We drew a Relic. Not terrible. I think we're going to play out our Windswept Teeth, and we'll pass the turn. Opponent plays out a Bowmaster, end of turn, pings us for 1, untaps. While our opening 7 seemed fine, it didn't line up well against what our opponent was doing, but Game 2 is a different story. We're going to scoop it up. In Game 2, I keep a super sketchy 1-lander in hopes of finding a fetch land off the top to power the Wrenn and 6 that's in my hand. While the fetch doesn't show up, Double Halfling and Utopia Sprawl survive the early turns, which gives me a huge opportunity to cast my commander for the first time. We'll spend 5 mana, cast out a Joda, cast out a Xander's Lounge, uptake our Wrenn and 6. We can actually cast out this Leyline Binding as well, which is nice. Opponent makes a Construct, untap. Saga goes up to 3. Okay, I like it. Another Construct. They'll search. Alright, my opponent opts for a Haywire Might. 1 mana, they thought sees me. Suppose they're taking Atraxa? Interesting, they take the Leyline Binding. Verdant Catacombs, fetch. Basic Forest. Imagine they hit the Relic. Alright, Relic down. They return Saga to their hand. Back to our turn. Alright, we drew into a Beseiju. I think we're actually going to make use of this. We're going to Beseiju down one of the constructs. Opponent gets themselves a Stomping Ground. We're going to use the Wrenn 6, return the Beseiju to hand. We're going to put Gigantha in our hand. We're going to play out the Beseiju. The original list I built this deck from did not play Gigantha as a companion, which I felt was a huge mistake, and the reason we significantly modified the deck list to accommodate our companion's demands. Alright, let's start with the Gigantha. It's going to trigger Joda. We'll cast a 1 ring. It'll trigger. Gigantha hits the field. Let's draw a card. Drew into a Grist. Okay, from here, I think we're going to Wrenn 6 down this construct, and we're going to attack into the Wrenn 6. Alright, Wrenn 6 down. Back to my opponent. Urza Saga up to 2. And our opponent scoops. We did the thing. Alright. Opening 7 looks great. We'll keep it. Opponent Bloodstained Mire. Fetch. Blood Crypt. Shock. Ragavan. Yeesh. Alright, drew into an Elish Norn. We'll start with our Temple Garden. Into a Delighted Halfling. And we'll pass turn. Opponent starting with an attack for 2. Could make that trade. I don't think we're going to, though. We really need this Halfling. I think there's a good chance this Halfling dies, but you do what you can. Opponent reveals it to Fairy. 2 mana from my opponent. Terminate on my Halfling. Back our way. Alright, drew into a Windswept Heath. So we're still 2 turns off from doing anything meaningful here. And much like Game 1, a slow hand for us on the draw up against a monkey on the other side of the table spells trouble. We're not able to get off the ground this game in time to defend the onslaught. And while we lost our first match, the second match of this league does an excellent job of showcasing the true power of this deck, which is what you're here for after all. Watch this. Opening 7 looks great. We'll keep it. On the draw. Opponent Bloodstained Mire, fetch. Blood Crypt, Shock. Another Ragavan. Alright, drew into a Leyline Binding, which isn't bad. Start with a Misty Rainforest. We'll fetch. Get ourselves a Temple Garden. Shock that in. Play out a Halfling. Pass the turn. Opponent another Bloodstained Mire. Attack with the Ragavan. We were faced with this predicament last game. I think our hand is actually a little bit better suited to deal with this game, so I actually think we're going to block here. Opponent with a Thoughtseize. Take the Omnath. Back our way. That was actually the land we were going to fetch for, which is kind of funny. We'll play it out. Opponent fetches. Stomping Ground tapped. Wonder if this is the same matchup we just played. Kind of feels like it. Bloodstained Mire. Wrenn 6. Bring back the Bloodstained Mire. We're going to Binding down the Wrenn 6 end of turn. Go into a Breeding Pool. Play out our Verdant Catacombs. We're going to fetch basic here. Play out our Relic, pass the turn. Overgrown Tomb from the other side. Bloodstained Mire. They don't have anything, we don't have anything. It's not a bad draw. Let's put our Breeding Pool out tapped. 4 mana, Thalia and Gitrog monster. Play another land, pass turn back. Opponent fetches with their Bloodstained Mire. Basic Swamp. Fatal Push coming this way. Or Terminate. Sure. And a Bowmaster end of turn. We take 1. Orc Army comes into play. Opponent has 2 cards in hand. Bloodstained Mire. Crack for 2, we're down at 13. Opponent puts Gigantha into their hand. End of turn, we're going to fetch. We'll get another Triumph. Untap. Drew a land, we like it. We'll fetch. Basic Plains. We'll cast our Atraxa. Opponent scoops, we're up a game. Opening 7 doesn't line up well against a discard deck. So I think we're going to mulligan this one. And I like our 6 better. We'll keep this. I think we're going to get rid of a land. Alright, opponent leads on a Thoughtseize. The jig is up, they know what we're doing. Alright, Joda hits the graveyard. This game developed as you would expect, with a very resource-light Molta 6. Our Halfling was quickly dispatched by a Pyrite Spellbomb, which was followed up by an Urza Saga and a Wrenn 6 on the following turn. The recurring combination of those 2 cards generated an army of constructs which inherited the Shadow Spear and beat us over the head. Game 3 was a much better time for us, however. Here, we'll take the play. Game 3. Feel our Gigantha. Opening 7 looks great, we'll keep it. Opponent's on 6 card hand. Temple Garden, we'll shock. Play our Utopia Sprawl, and we'll name blue. Opponent with a Bloodstained Mire, they fetch. Basic Swamp, and a Thoughtseize. I think we're okay with that. Imagine my opponent gets rid of the Grist. They go for the Teferi. Interesting. Not what I was expecting. Drew Xander's Lounge. Be nice for our Binding in a turn. Fetch with our Verdant Catacombs. Shock in our Overgrown Tomb. Play out our Grist. Plus our Grist. Pass the turn. Stomping Ground from the other side. Orcish Bowmasters. Anticipated them having this. Knock down our Construct. Back the other way. Drew into a Wrenn 6. That's pretty good. Plus our Grist. Xander's Lounge into play. Can't cast our Wrenn 6 yet, but we will next turn. Opponent leading off with an attack. We will gladly block this Bowmaster here. A little confused by that one. Pirate Spellbomb from my opponent. Nothing else. Untap. Drew into a Joda. Plus up our Grist. Put a Wrenn 6 into play. Here, plus our Wrenn 6. Get our Wooded Foothills. Play that out. We'll fetch. Basic Forest. And we're going to make use of our mana. We'll put our Gigantha into hand. Pass turn back. Opponent missed their land drop last turn. Fatal Push my Insect. Orc Army attacks at the Wrenn 6. Unholy Heat the Wrenn 6. Drew into an Atraxa. That's pretty good. We'll get our Sacred Foundry here. We're going to shock that in. Cast out our Joda. Pass turn. Urza Saga from my opponent. We're going to march this with the trigger on the stack. 2 mana from my opponent. And a Tarmogoyf. 6/7. Pretty big. No attacks. This is where stuff gets fun. Alright, Drew a second Binding. Put a Wooded Foothills into hand. Cast the Wooded Foothills. We'll fetch. Shock in a Breeding Pool. And we're going to add 7 mana and we'll cast an Atraxa. It's going to trigger Joda. Put a One Ring into play. And my opponent scoops. Alright, 1-1. Jumping into our third match. This looks pretty good. We'll keep it. Opponent leads on a Misty Rainforest. They fetch. Shock in a Steam Vent. Cast a Preordain. Drew into a Leyline Binding. Not bad. We'll start with a Temple Garden. We'll shock. Cast out our Halfling. Pass turn back. Opponent shocks in a Stomping Ground into a Rona. Alright, so we're doing degenerate things over there. We draw for turn. Found a Sacred Foundry. I think we'll shock that in. We're going to pay 3 mana for a Teferi. We'll bounce Rona back to their hand. Drew into a Windswept Heath. Pass it back. 2 mana from my opponent. Wrenn 6. Ping down my Teferi. Cast out a Mox Amber. Unholy Heat my Delighted Halfling. And back to us. Drew into another land. Not really what we're looking for at this point. Play out our Halfling. Our opponent did miss their land drop. Play out a Misty. We're going to fetch here and now. We're going to get our Saga Triome. Play out our Binding. And we're going to hit Wrenn 6. Let's pass it back. Another Wrenn 6. That's unfortunate. Misty Rainforest back to hand. Play that out. Lightning Bolt down our Halfling. And back to us. We drew into a Gitrog monster. I like it. We use our Windswept Heath. Fetch. Let's get our basic plains here. Cast out the monster. Oh, forgot to play another land. I had another land drop. That was my bad. opponent gets land tapped. 4 mana from my opponent, they cast out a 1 ring. It's going to trigger. Get a land back from the graveyard, goes into play tapped. Draw a card off their ring, back our way. Alright, we drew another land. Not really what we're looking for here. I think we're going to start off by cycling our Triome. We found a ring of our own. Move to combat. Crack at Wrenn and 6. Sacrifice our plains, we'll draw another card. Okay. Wrenn 6 goes down to 1. Play out a tower. We'll play out Stomping Ground tapped. Let's pass turn back. When it fetches during their upkeep, draws 2 cards off their ring. 4 mana. Another ring. Gives themselves protection again. They sacrifice the old one, keep the new one. Unholy Heat, our Gitrog monster. Bring back a land. Land into play. Fetch. Shock that Steam Vents. Draw a card with their ring. Cast a Bauble. Look at our top card. Cast out an Emery. They're going to mill 4 into the graveyard. Back to us. Alright, we drew into a Joda, which is really good. Question is, are we going to lose next turn? That is a possibility. I think we're going to cast out our Joda here. Alright, Joda's in play. Overgrown Tomb tapped, pass turn back. Opponent takes 1 off their ring, draws 2 more. Preordain, 2 on the bottom, they draw a card. Underworld Breach, Grinding Station, and that's going to be game. We're going to scoop it up for the sake of time. We were able to steal victory in Game 2 with our mom, Ella Schnorn, carrying a bulk of the load, preventing our opponent from comboing. But Game 3 quickly got out of hand and we got steamrolled in a very unexciting fashion. But our final 2 matches were just the opposite, as we really got to showcase what we were made of to finish out this league with a positive record. Let me show you how we did it. Alright, let's see if we can bounce back. Gigantha revealed. Opening 7 on the draw. I don't think we can keep this, unfortunately. Alright, our 6 is a little bit better. We'll keep our 6, and we'll bottom Acererak. Opponent Breeding Pool. Shock, Crashing Footballs. Alright, we drew into a Utopia Sprawl. Not bad. Start with a Misty. I'm actually just going to fetch a basic here. We're going to get our Halfling into play. Alright, their footfalls go down to 3. They fetch. Get a basic forest. 2 mana. Brazen Borrower. Halfling goes back to my hand. Draw for turn. Acererak is back. The man, the myth, the legend. We'll play out our Halfling again. And then we'll play out our Rafine's Tower. Pass it back. Footfalls down to 2. Misty Rainforest. Fetch. Stomping Ground. Fire down my Halfling. Unfortunate. And another Footfalls on Suspend. Interesting. Alright, we drew into Gwenna. So we'll play out our Windswept Teeth, we'll fetch. Gonna get a Stomping Ground here. We'll shock that in. Utopia Sprawl. We'll name black with the Sprawl. And we're gonna cast out our Gwenna. And we'll pass turn. 2 Footfalls. They'll be coming off Suspend next turn. Another Footfalls on Suspend. That's 3 on Suspend. That's crazy. We drew into a Wrenn 6, which is actually really good. So we'll start with our Wrenn 6. Plus Wrenn 6. Return Windswept Teeth to hand. Play out the Heath. Fetch with the Heath. Gonna get a basic plains here. Green and white. And cast out a Gitrog monster. Pass the turn. Okay, here come the Footfalls. First one comes off Suspend. Alright, 2 of them into play tapped. Opponent does nothing. Back our way. Alright, we drew into an Omnath, which is really good. Let's add blue and green. Plus our Wrenn 6, return Windswept Teeth to our hand. Cast our Omnath. We'll draw a card. We drew into a Teferi. Omnath, we'll play a land, we'll trigger. Here Teferi's pretty good. Let's fetch with our Omnath. We'll get a Sacred Foundry. We'll shock. 4 mana in pool. Cast out Teferi. Minus Teferi. Kill one of the rhinos. 4 mana. Cast a 1 ring. Trigger. Opponent scoops. We're up a game. Game 2, my opponent gets the chance to do their thing, resolving a Cascade spell on turn 3, which was backed up by counter magic to put me away quickly. Let's move on to the 3rd game of this match. Game 3 will take the play. I like the 7, we'll keep it. Opponent's on a 6-card hand. Start with the Triome. Pass the turn. Breeding Pool shock from my opponent. Suspend a Footfalls. Untap for us. Drew into a Beseju. We'll play out a Xander's Lounge and a Utopia Sprawl. And we'll name white. Basic island from my opponent. Nothing else. During our upkeep, they're going to tap down our Triome. Sure. Drew into an Omnath. Pretty good. I think we're going to play out our Beseju. And we'll pass turn back. Footfalls down to 3. Down to 2. Misty Rainforest. Suspend another Footfalls. Interesting. Alright, drew another Misty Rainforest. We're going to have 4 mana. We're going to cast an Omnath. Comes into play, it triggers, we'll draw a card. Drew a 2nd Relic, we'll play a land. Triggers on the stack, we'll fetch. We'll get a basic plains. Gain 4, 4 in the pool. We're going to 3 mana, cast a Relic of Legends. Playing around a Mystic Dispute here. 3 mana, cast another Relic. Opponent fetches. Stomping Ground shock. 2 mana. Brazen Borrow the Omnath. Footfalls. 1 and 2. Land tap from my opponent. 1, 2, 3. And a Shardless Agent. Footfalls. Rhino's in play. Alright, drew into a Breeding Pool. Alright, let's try this again. Cast an Omnath again. It's going to trigger. We'll draw a card. Drew into a Joda. I'll play out a Windswept Teeth. We'll gain 4. Fetch. Get a Triome tapped. 4 mana in the pool. Cast out Teferi. We'll bounce one of the Rhinos. 5 mana. Oh, cast out our Joda. And we'll pass the turn back. Okay, Footfall is going to come off Suspend. Teferi will not allow it. Lorn Revealed. Opponent's going to get themselves a land. Get themselves a Triome. Play it out. 3 mana. Brazen Borrower into play. Okay, nothing else. Drew into a 3rd Relic of Legends. Plus up Teferi. Play a land tapped. Another Relic. We'll pass turn back. Footfall's down to 1. Another land from my opponent. Attack it Teferi. Cast out a Binding. Take the Borrower. 5 mana, Lorn Revealed. Opponent's going to draw 3 cards. Back our way. Can we draw Legend? Okay, that counts. Not great though. We'll plus our Teferi to start with. Cast out the Silex. Trigger. Don't think it's actually going to get anything. Now we're in a position we can start attacking. Attack for 7. Opponent goes down to 8 life. Okay, Footfall is off of Suspend. Play out a Mutavault. Attacks at Teferi. Block the Shardless. And we'll pop the Silex. Opponent doesn't do anything else. Very surprising. Untap. Draw into a Triome. We'll start there. We'll cycle it. Drew into a Thoughtseize. Doesn't really do too much. We'll attack with the team. Opponent scoops. Got it done. 5th and final match. We are finally on the play. Let's reveal that Gigantha. Get things started. Oof. This one is close. We're going to keep it though. Start with the Temple Garden. We'll shock. Play out our Sprawl. We're going to name Red. Pass turn back. Opponent starts with a Might Go Synth Gardens into an Amulet. Could be trouble. We drew another Utopia Sprawl. I suppose we'll play that out. And we'll name White with the 3rd one. Back my opponent's way. 2nd Amulet of Vigor. This could be bad. 4 mana is going to be added to the pool. Triad from my opponent to an Urza Saga. Okay, could have been a lot worse. And we drew our land, which is excellent. So we're going to play out our Verdant. We're going to fetch. Get ourselves a Xander's Lounge. We're going to cast out Wrenn and 6. Plus Wrenn and 6, return the Catacombs to hand. Play out a Binding. And we're going to take the Dryad. Opponent untaps. Saga up to 2. Play out a Forest. Back our way. Alright, we actually have our combo. So that's actually what we're going to go for. If you've played Commander before, you may be familiar with this one. Acererak, Gwenna, and Relic of Legends creates an infinite loop. I can use the 2 mana Gwenna produces to cast Acererak, which accomplishes 2 things. 1, it untaps my Gwenna, and 2, I venture into the dungeon. I choose to venture into the Lost Mind of Phandelver because the Dark Pool's Room allows me to drain my opponent for 1 life. Acererak will repetitively return to my hand when I cast it until I choose to complete the Tomb of Annihilation. But before he returns to sender, I add a mana with the Relic, which will give me the requisite 3 mana to recast Skeletor. Do this a ton of times and you have yourself the victory. But I wound up getting tired of clicking so much, so once my opponent got down to 10 life, I just attacked with my Kroxa and Keranos for the dub. Attack for 11. Opponent's forced to block, and that's lethal. We're up a game. Feel that Gigantha. Opening 7 is excellent. We will keep this. Opponent leads on a Saga. We like it. Saga into a map. Drew into a Relic. We're going to start by fetching out a basic. Exile the Saga. Pass turn back. Basic Forest from our opponent. Play out our Overgrown Tomb. Shock it in. Play out our Halfling. Pass back. Greaser from my opponent. No other land. Very strange. Utopia Sprawl not bad. We'll cast out a Relic. I'm going to Sprawl on the Tomb. We'll name Blue with that one. When it plays out a Valakut, back our way. End of turn we'll fetch. And we'll get our Rogran Triome. Untap. Drew into a Beseiju. Not bad. Black, blue, red. 5 mana, cast out Joda. And we're going to leave up our Beseiju. Pass turn back. Alright, nothing else from our opponent. Back our way. Alright, we have a very powerful turn coming up. We'll add black. We're going to tap the Joda for green. Blue. 7 mana, we'll cast out our Atraxa. Trigger Joda. Put a 1 ring into play. Pretty good. 1 ring triggers. Atraxa enters play, and it's going to trigger. Take a Stomping Ground. A March. A Wrenn and 6. Thoughtseize. Utopia Sprawl. No, we don't want the Utopia Sprawl. We want the Binding. And we'll take the Omnath. We'll take 7 cards. Play out the Stomping Ground. We will shock. Out of black. Tap the Atraxa. We'll Thoughtseize. We're going to take the Dryad out of our opponent's hand. Back my opponent's way. Drew a Growth Chamber, which is fine. No Amulet in play. They'll return a land to hand. Draw a card end of turn. Untap, draw. Down to 11. Drew an Elesh Norn. Pretty sure that should just be game over from here. We'll play out the Elesh Norn. It's going to trigger Joda. Cast out a Gwenna. Elesh Norn hits play. Tap Gwenna. Tap Elesh Norn. Play out Omnath. It's going to trigger again. Cast a Wrenn and 6. Wrenn 6 enters play. Omnath enters play. There's going to be 2 triggers. We'll draw 2 cards. Get a March, and a Gitrog monster. Return a Misty to our hand. Play out a Misty. Double trigger Omnath. 4 mana and pool will fetch. Get a basic Forest. 2 more triggers from Omnath. 2 mana. Exile the Grazer. We'll move to combat. Attack for 22. And we got there.